I'm Lewis Sullivan. I'm Reba Chartered Architect and Principal Architect at Darwin Group, and I'm here today to talk to you about Bedroom Evolved, the thought, theory and lessons learned. If you want to see this thing for yourself, please come see us on stand 214 over there, after the talk preferably. I'm not going to read this out. You can read it for yourself. It's a little bit of a sales blurb about why we did this thing originally. But effectively, this came from a discussion after Design and Mental Health 2022 between Darwin Group, Safeinge Primera, Medical Architecture, and other suppliers who were at the event, thinking about whether we could do something to really evolve the thought process behind what good patient care looks like in mental health spaces. Darwin Group are a healthcare provider. We design, build solutions across the healthcare market. Our sort of USP is by doing it with volumetric modular in mind, but certainly in terms of the fit out and finish, it's absolutely paramount that it meets the robust quality and standards expected of these spaces. So it's fully compliant. And we wanted to bring the module to the show in order to show some of the quality that is maybe a misnomer when we think about what modular is as a kind of it's become quite a dirty word. So we're looking at just showing that we are absolutely a robust, suitable solution. We can provide this as a completely off-site build, which is not typically what we do, but is entirely sensible for the need. And effectively, the benefits of fitting this inside one module that can be fully fitted out in our facilities in Shropshire and put on the back of the lorry and craned into site, saving vast amounts of times and ultimately getting much closer to patient care much quicker. The interior of the room, we worked very closely with Medical Architecture last year, and I can't thank them enough for the brilliant input that they had in developing what is effectively still the blueprint of the design this year. It was built on the back of the Procure Functional Single Bedroom Type 1 standard, and here you can see a very sketchy overlay of the Procure standard room in red and what we've now got as the colourful underlay underneath it. So you can see that we're not really trying to reinvent the wheel here. We're not trying to do anything that isn't built on what is already a tried and tested solution. It's just about building it and delivering it and learning more from that. This is, well, that's my hand. And this is kind of the kit parts puzzle piece approach to what I'm trying to push at what we do at Darwin Group in terms of creating design and standardized designs where it makes sense. I come from a background working in architecture, not working for a contractor. So I'm very aware of kind of the limitations of working in an architect practice, but also the benefits that we could have from a contractor side with kind of a design instinct to develop spaces that de-risk and create standardized components where appropriate. And we really see this as one of numerous kind of standard components that we're currently developing, with the key idea that they are repeatable, we can de-risk them, and they're appropriate for the environment. And really by prototyping them and bringing them here, displaying them, it really allows us to tweak them and create a better product for all. And this is really how we see it working viably as an economic solution. The fact that we could deploy these very rapidly as complete kit of parts that would very quickly create a ward environment of bedrooms. Not suggesting that this is how you want to arrange them, but potentially it's not a terrible idea. And so last year, this is a very quick sketch that I did that we used last year as part of the promotional material for the interior of the room, trying to get the look and feel of this space. I think a lot of what we did last year has been replicated in what we've done this year, which is why it was so heartbreaking to kind of take it apart a couple of months ago. But it really shows kind of the thought process behind what we're trying to do. It's creating a calming, serene, appropriate environment for care And this is us last year, this time yesterday, a year ago, as we're bringing the module to site. So you can see it was craned in with its little waterproof cover on and dropped into the site before all the other displays were created. We took the cover off, and to be honest, this is the first time that we've done anything like this. So Darwin don't typically operate by creating fully off-site solutions that we drop and move around the country. We would typically create kind of a steel shell, insulated and waterproofed, that then we drop as a module on site, that then we typically go down a more traditional route of building partitions and all the interiors and doing all the quality and insurance testing. But for something like this, it makes perfect sense that what we did is develop this as a completely off-site solution. But we weren't quite brave enough to trust ourselves that it was going to go so smoothly. So we left things such as the painting of the walls and doing the final bit of touching and details until last year, until the final day of the exhibition last year. I think one of the benefits of doing this for a second time using the same module is that we're absolutely sure of the robustness and the quality of our module. And so we did all the painting about a week ago. So thankfully there's no cracks or anything when we turned up on Monday morning yesterday. But it worked, it was robust, and it did its job, which just is another kind of proud moment in terms of what we did. And this is a photo of what we displayed last year for those of you who were there. And here's another photo of what it looked like last time. Before I get on to the lessons learned, I'm going to just touch on the exterior, which hasn't changed between this year and last year. So I'll just do a little bit of a deep dive. Whereas medical architecture did a brilliant job developing the interior last year, me, my team, and Darwin Group as a whole were responsible for designing and delivering what is, I'm quite proud to say, like a very high quality exterior. It looks brilliant, and I wish all the buildings that I've delivered looked quite as good as that. I'm also quite personally proud that I managed to get some diaper bomb brickwork built on a building, however small it is, but I can tick that off my bucket list. But the concept for this was really the outdoor room, which is, it's not a new idea, it's effectively 100 years old, maybe even older. It was pioneered most famously by Otto Wagner, the great Austrian architect, when he developed his Steinhoff facility, which is the first dedicated psychiatric care facility in the world, in Vienna in, I think, 1903. His concept there, you think about the time that it was created, it was effectively pavilions, ward pavilions that were created in this really bucolic landscape, with the idea that you try and get the patient outside as much as possible. And of course, that is a brilliant example to lead by, certainly one that's very fitting for how we think about design today. And so that's what we've tried to do across the 2 years that this has been displayed. It's really to create an environment that, although the inside does look brilliant, you don't mind dwelling around the outside of the building. And even though this is not in its intended setting outside, sitting somewhere in the UK or maybe further afield, it's in an exhibition space with fake astroturf and fake potted plastic plants, but still gives you that feeling. And so this is a sketch that I did to sort of illustrate those ideas. It's the coziness, it's the familiarity, it's a comfortable space, it's a space that you want to dwell and spend time. And yeah, personally, like this is my sort of idea of facades through the ages, just to develop on an idea of what Darwin Group do is not really prescriptive. We can develop a facade language and a building massing language which is really applicable for whatever the intended environment, whether it's kind of medieval diaper work, diaper bomb brickwork, through to modern equitone or maybe super format carved panels, which are doing brilliant things in the light if you catch them at the right time of day, all day today. And so this is just examples of, say, what one side of the building could look like if you want to go down ultra-modern, or another side if you wanted to do something that is, well, extremely traditional. But as I said, we exhibited this thing last year, and over the course of the year we had over 400 visitors to it. And to be honest, we were not expecting the reception that we got. I think it went down incredibly well. But the most beneficial point for us was that people treated it like their home away from home. So people sat on the bench, they sat on the bed, they dwelled and they spent 5 or 10 minutes there, and they felt comfortable in the space and comfortable enough to really share what it feels like, what they liked, what they didn't like. And those points were incredibly valuable. And we got it from a range of people, everyone at the show and beyond, in terms of lived experience, nurses, estates managers, potential clients, fellow architects. The input was vast, numerous, and touched on so many bases, which is brilliant. And I'm so thankful for Design and Mental Health for having the show and all of us coming here to have that input. Because ultimately what we got out of it was invaluable in what we did this year, and what I'll explain in a minute. And I'm really proud to share back to the community in terms of evolving what good design looks like. I put that note about the plants worked well because we spent over £1,000 on plants last year, so it felt like we had to. But more interestingly for us was the points of what didn't work well. And these points are really what led to the design and the drive for what we were doing. When we were developing the design for this last year, we very much saw it primarily as a concept piece, as something that people would see maybe from a distance. We could maybe change their perceptions of the quality and the robustness of our spaces, and they could experience it. But like I was just saying, the fact that they could dwell in these spaces and they really got to grips with the detail of it and had really pertinent comments about how we designed the space, and some brilliant feedback that, to be honest, the design team would not have come up with if it was not exhibited in this environment, really made us think about how we could do it better. One of my favourite comments was the contrasting personal private space, extending the threshold of the corridor across the sweep of the door swing into the room, so that the nurse could stand in the space and the patient doesn't necessarily feel like they're intruding beyond their threshold. I think that's such a beautiful comment. It makes perfect sense. And it's something that is extremely easy for us to design into a bedroom space, but can potentially make a massive difference to patient care. And so after the show last year, well, to be honest, maybe 10 months after the show last year, we started to think about bringing it back, and did this post-rationalized sketch of what it looks like this year, and some of the features that we tried to implement. Some of the main features amounted to basically ripping out the interior and just iterating it. And it really was iterative things. So the changes are subtle, but I feel like in terms of the detail and the level that we're really critiquing the space, seem to be making a big difference. And the feedback that we've had, certainly this morning, has been testament to that. And so the proposal for this year, we worked extremely closely with Tough Furniture, who also created the joinery last year, and had numerous hours of troubleshooting and brilliant meetings where we really put them to test in terms of what was possible in terms of the design. And Tough Furniture were enormous throughout this. Apparently I was shielded from quite a few of the internal tough conversations, but they never told me that anything was impossible, and it turns out that we've done something really, really brilliant because of that. So my key buzzwords for this year were serenity in the environment, a calmness, and really effectively that took on what is this kind of Japandi Scandi vibe to the whole thing, but it's a very calming, neutral space. And that just follows on a lot of the tone of the feedback that we got last year in terms of wanting soft rounded edges, in terms of really celebrating the amount of natural light that comes through the space, reducing the shelving space and effectively simplifying and at the same time amplifying that as a design feature. So one of my favourite drawings through the process was this one, which didn't actually get used that much, but it certainly looks quite nice. Is just explaining the evolution of the joinery in terms of effectively 1 to 5 details of how we form this space. And we managed to design it, I'm quite proud as an architect that one of the best ways to create a minimalist space is to design minimally. And so the majority of the junctions, I think there's only maybe two unique junctions. The majority of the room can be built out of these 5 details, which I think is just a brilliant thing that we managed to work and iterate through. I'm not sure if anyone's actually noticed that when they step into the room, but I like the fact that I know it's there. And then the other thing, the colour coding, explains the different planes, how this thing folds together and is layered together. And so effectively what we have, and you'll see this in more detail if you go and have a look at the room, is these different colour coded planes sit either 18 millimeters in front or behind each other. So they build up this subtle layering where it's very intentional how planes fold into each other and construct the space. And I think that just helps elevate the sight lines across the piece. If you follow them, if you're flowing through, you understand how the whole piece fits together as a holistic thing that cocoons and wraps, which I really enjoy. I feel like does benefit the space. So yeah, as I mentioned, sadly, this is the demolition drawing. It felt really strange ripping out what was such a good thing, and for quite a while looked an absolute mess after we ripped it out. I was really cautious whether we would be able to put it back as good as we took it apart. But this was the dream of creating that nice, serene environment, updating the colour coding, the palette, and ultimately trying to do what we said. These are renders of how we intended the finished bathroom to look. Just want to touch on the bathroom, which effectively we didn't iterate a lot from last year. What we did do is change the bioclad that's on the wall, the hygienic cladding, swapped it out for their beautiful vivid olive colour, and we also added a full height mirror. Of course, this is again a kind of a trust specific option, but I feel like it does elevate the room. It makes it feel grander. It's very voluminous. But we had some brilliant feedback about this as a design piece last year, in terms of it being a single surface combined vanity unit that has the sink, the toilet and the shower that could all be accessed and maintained from the riser space outside. Again, Trust seemed really receptive of that, in terms of it meant that they could potentially do a lot of maintenance work to these spaces from outside the room, again minimising potential harm and risk and disruption to patients. One of the other points that we didn't build through this year but was a hot topic of discussion was the location of the bed. The one on the left is the original, and it's the same one that we built this year. It just works better in terms of how many people you can hold in the room, as we need it to do over the 2 days today and tomorrow. But the one on the right is also an option. What's great is the bedroom doesn't necessarily need to be reconfigured further than just rotating the position of the bed to make this work. So again, it's a brilliant option, part of this standard suite that we're very keen to design through. And so now to sort of end the presentation, I've just got a series of renders that I'm going to sweep through, which show how we intended this space to look a couple of months ago when we were designing it. I'm quite proud to say that what we've got looks incredibly similar to what we've now got today. So this is the bed in the original location as built, and that's it in its alternative location. This is the reverse wall with the safe hinge chalkboard door, and Tough Furniture's incredible joinery, and again with an alternative bed location. This render actually shows the floor finishes really well in terms of how we integrated that sweep, which you will see for yourself, and in the alternative bed location. And then looking directly at the large polar Humber 2 window with the alternative location, and back towards the desk wall with the Reconnect co in play with an alternative location. And that is Bedroom Evolved. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Can you see you can't see my mouse, but I can use this pointer. It was that detail there on the edge of the desk, which we've replicated there on the top of the TV cabinet. If you see it for yourself, Tough Furniture have explained it to me about 5 times how they managed to do this thing, and it felt like it was the easiest thing for them. I can't wrap my head around how they detailed it. It looks fantastic. It's got a soft rounded edge on 2 sides, and it meets in a lovely rounded corner with the laminate pressed onto it. It looks brilliant. It does exactly what you need to do. It's really satisfying to touch this space, and I think that's another part of a brilliant piece of patient care, in that we wanted to make the space as kind of haptic and responsive and get that sense of touch into it as much as possible. And it's so satisfying to run your hand across the edge of that piece of furniture. On the back of last year, we've had quite a few interesting conversations with trusts. Certainly done numerous feasibility studies where we're thinking about rolling this out. By all accounts, it was very well received and they're very keen on doing it. We're incredibly keen on building this out because I think it would be a fantastic thing to actually get out there and really work with a trust to evolve outside of what we've done as kind of a group of designers wanting to do better and understand how they would use this in their personal environments. And yes, it was designed to show the art of the possible. It certainly is deployable as a product, and like I said, we've done the feasibilities that effectively drag and drop these things across to create those walled environments that we intended it to be used for. And we're really hopeful that that will really go somewhere in the next year. Yeah, it's possible. Everything that we're doing is trying not to be prescriptive to a trust. So we'll give them the option of how do you want to heat your space, and ultimately it's going to be first led by the trust strategy and what works best for them. The same with the build-up of the walls. We know what works for us in terms of like the steel post system, and what they want the walls to be made up. Ultimately, it doesn't bother us as long as it meets the compliance standards that we need it to. We've got multiple options. The same thing for the heating, and more specifically if they're thinking about potentially changing it up repetitively depending on users. I think that's a specific that we would love the opportunity to think about how we would design that in, because I believe that there must be a solution out there that doesn't require you to rip up the vinyl and replace an underfloor heating element every single time. But there are alternative means of heating these spaces which we could explore, which might be more viable in those solutions. So yeah, really would be really open and encouraged by the discussion, and we wouldn't necessarily want to push a client or a trust down one specific route. We would certainly look to create a solution that works best for them. Yeah, we've considered this, and the next iteration of this will hopefully include that as a system, which is really exciting in terms of pushing further sensory analysis on this space. There's nothing that means that we can't integrate those solutions into the build. It's extremely flexible in terms of that. This module is just under 9 meters long, which includes the Procure standard evolved bedroom and the compliant corridor. It's actually slightly wider than the compliant corridor because we felt that we could build it that wide based on the stand size that we had available in Coventry last year. But there's nothing to stop us stretching it, pulling it, forming it, and creating a standard that works for numerous use cases. Although this is built as, functional bedroom type 1, effectively, we could do a similar design. We could build out and develop a similar solution for multiple standard components, as I term them, that we're developing, and see real potential use cases for these, for their rapid deployability across the NHS.
Louis, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hope it proves to be a success.
Me too. Thank you all.